One of the most peculiar and neglected stories in the early nation of Islam is that of a mysterious blue-eyed white man by the name of Wali. While the early NOI was undoubtedly a serious and apocalyptic organization, one that had frequent run-ins with the authorities, Yudi Farad apparently knew how to have fun. According to Farad's secretary, Bernstein the reformer Sharif Muhammad, Muslims held picnics every Tuesday where they would dance, play games, and win prizes. Bernstein said that he would even dance the waltz with a glass of water on his head. Some of these events would happen at Belle Ile, an island park in Detroit. But according to Bernstein's daughter Medina Muhammad, Farad and his followers would mostly go to Wali's house in Ferndale, Michigan for enjoyment. Ferndale is a suburb of Detroit. These accounts would perplex scholars in the field. Who was Wali? Why were members of a black nationalist religious movement partying in the house of a blue-eyed devil? Thanks to a recently surfaced lecture of John Muhammad, who was the brother of Elijah Muhammad and the husband of Bernstein Sharif Muhammad, we have learned more about this white Wali. According to John Muhammad, the name of the light-skinned man in Ferndale was Wali Mohammed. He was one of John's teachers in the temple, and he submitted himself to W.D. Farad. This fact is simply stunning. One of the early teachers in the Temple of Islam was a white man. When John Muhammad was the principal of the University of Islam, he asked Wali a series of questions, and he answered them just as though they were nothing. Apparently, Wali's college friends would call him a walking encyclopedia. But John Muhammad said that he realized after staying with him in Chicago that he was as dumb as they get, and that he didn't know nothing but the encyclopedia. We have heard nothing about Wali's whereabouts after Farad's time. The newspaper records were searched for a Wali Mohammed in this period. In the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, an article titled, "One-Time Local Grocery is Mohammedan Mosque" by Anna Jane Phillips appeared on August 1, 1932. The article is about an Ahmadiyya community with an Indian imam, and it features a picture of a predominantly black congregation in prayer. It also states, to bind themselves closer to Islam, each has discarded his English name on joining the mosque and adopted a title from the eastern land of their prophet. John Smith is now Abu Saleh, and Tom White has become Wali Muhammad. In 1933, the Cincinnati Post, an article titled "Bustle of Cincinnati Fails to Disturb Devotions of Followers of Muhammad" appears on February 9th, just over 6 months after the Pittsburgh article, covers another Ahmadiyya mosque stating, "Islam draws no race or color distinction. To ensure universality, even natural names are dropped, and names taken from the myriad Islamic prophets adopted in their stead. The Muezzin, for example, is a Cincinnatian. His name used to be Fox. Now he is Nur Dad, light given. Similarly, one of the faithful used to be John Smith. Now he is Abu Saleh. Tom White is Wali Muhammad. Gerald is Ahmed, and Jones is Ali." To potentially connect all three people, there is a third article that is relevant. In the Grand Haven Tribune, there was an article titled, "Pear Slug Rob Ailing Grocer, Knock Ferndale Man Unconscious, Find He Is Ill, Revive Him," published on August 4th, 1931. The story is about two robbers who knocked a 60-year-old man unconscious and then resuscitated him after learning that he was suffering from pneumonia. The man's name in the article is Tom White, and his daughters' names are Glory and Verdon. If Wali Muhammad were an older, sickly man, then it would make sense why we do not know anything about him after Farad's time. Wali Muhammad's potential connections to the Ahmadiyya movement are relevant to our study of W.D. Farad. The early NOI seems to have been extensively influenced by the Ahmadiyya mission in America. Ahmadiyya proselytizers were active in Detroit and Chicago, both places Farad and Wali were active, and they were presenting Islam as a religion of racial justice and correction to white supremacy. Is it possible that W.D. Farad met Wali Muhammad in the Ahmadiyya community and the two became friends? It is possible that Wali Muhammad had progressive racial views, which drew him to these two predominantly African American communities. If Wali Muhammad was Tom White and he lived in Ferndale, Michigan between 1930 and 1934, this fact should be easily corroborated. And it is. The man in question, and the only who matches the profile, is William Thomas White. He lived in Ferndale, Michigan, and was the father of Glory and Verdun. While one might have expected this Wali Mohammed or Tom White to have been a Lebanese, a Syrian, a Bosnian, an Albanian, or any other ethnicity associated with Islam, he was born in the United Kingdom in December of 1868. William Thomas White immigrated to the United States as a teenager. He was listed as working as an engineer in the Detroit City Directory in 1898. William Thomas White was living in Detroit, Ward 16, in 1900. The daughter mentioned in the newspaper article, Glory, was born in Detroit on June the 1st, 1913. The other daughter, Verdun Ethel, was born there on November 23rd, 1915. William Thomas White was living in Detroit in 1920. He was living in Ferndale, Michigan in 1932 when he was 63 years of age. A meticulous search of Ahmadi literature turned up no sign of any William Thomas White, Tom White, or Wali Mohammed. This is unusual, as the Ahmadis were proud of showing off their converts, particularly the white ones they fetishized. There is nothing in the Review of Religions in print since 1902, or in the Muslim Sunrise, which started publication in 1921. There is no evidence tying William Thomas White with the Ahmadis at all, with the exception of those newspaper articles. One of the cities with which he was associated, namely Pittsburgh, formed part of the Great Ahmadi Schism that took place there in 1934 and in Cleveland in 1934. If Wali Mohammed was associated with these mosques, it is possible he was not mentioned in Ahmadi sources as he joined the breakaway blacks who revolted against Indian Qadiani control. Since his contact with W.D. Farad has been confirmed, it is possible that this white Muslim missionary Wali Mohammed was fishing for converts for the Allah Temple of Islam. In two articles, Wali Mohammed accompanied a John Smith at the Ahmadiyya mosques in Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. John Smith was also known as Abu Saleh. Was this John Smith an associate of Wali? Were they working together to gain black converts? Is it merely a coincidence that Abu Saleh is one of the nicknames sometimes associated with the Mahdian Shi'ism? Our protagonist, William Thomas White, was an engineer, born in the United Kingdom, who disappeared around the same time that W.D. Farad vanished from the face of the earth. In fact, according to his descendants, word is he possibly died in South America. This is beyond curious, as W.D. Farad sent a letter from the southwestern part of North America in 1933. Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Mexico. According to John Muhammad, it was sent from Mexico. Bernstein Sharif Muhammad, W.D. Farad's one and only secretary who served him faithfully from 1931 to 1934, has noted in her memoirs that the Allah Temple of Islam would organize picnics every Tuesday where they would dance, play games, and win prizes. She recalled that W.D. Farad would dance the waltz with a glass of water on his head. According to her daughter, Medina Muhammad, some of these events took place at Wali's house in Ferndale, Michigan. No listing for a Wali in any variant form was found for the city at that time. However, a newspaper search identified a Muslim convert by the name of Wali Mohammed, who was associated with black congregations in cities a day away. His name was Tom White. A search for Tom White turned up a newspaper account which linked him to Ferndale, Michigan, and which mentioned that he had two daughters by the names of Glory and Verdun. A search of vital records revealed that his full name was William Thomas White. Much like W.D. Farad, William Thomas White was a perplexing person. He was a highly educated British-American engineer. He lived in Ferndale, Michigan, one of the fastest-growing cities of its size in the United States in the 1930s. While he married numerous times and had a dozen children, some of them were born out of wedlock. This was socially frowned upon, as in the 90s, illegitimate births amounted to less than 4%. Initial research was unable to uncover any other link between William Thomas White and Islam outside of the articles already mentioned. How and why he became associated with a person like W.D. Farad is unclear. What is most puzzling of all is the fact that William Thomas White, aka Wali Mohammed, appears to have disappeared from Detroit and the United States at approximately the same time as W.D. Farad. He would have been 67 years old in 1935. As if evaporating from the planet without a trace were not incredible enough, the most astonishing revelation is that, according to his descendants, it is possible that William Thomas White, namely Wali Mohammed, died in South America. According to one theory, W.D. Farad left the United States and entered Mexico. If these findings are correct, and more research must be conducted, it is possible that he was not traveling alone. The question that haunts researchers remains: why? Read W.D. Farad, The Man, Myth, and Mystery Behind the Nation of Islam by Dr. John Andrew Morrow and Bilal Muhammad.